Welcome into the draft profile for Jack Bech, wide receiver out of TCU. And guys, this is a 6'1", 214-pound, I believe, big slot receiver. I don't think he has a ton of value out wide. A lot of guys like this in the class. There's a lot of guys in this wide receiver class that fit a role on an offense. I think Jack Bech is another guy who fits a role on an offense. I think a team's going to find him and really like him. I really like, you watch him and it's like, I think he's going to be a starter for like 7 to 9 years on a team where he's a fan favorite for years. Like he has that kind of style, right? He has that kind of just grit to his game. Gonna be kind of a target hog if he ends up in the right offense where he can just get all the underneath stuff. I think I could see him being really good at stuff like that. He has pretty good stats. I'll put it on the screen for you now. One thing that I found a little weird, not weird, I understand why it happened, but he did all of his testing at the combine except running the 40-yard dash. And that isn't something that I'm shocked by. I don't watch him play and think that he's incredibly explosive or a guy who's going to separate on the outside. That's why I said I don't think he has really any value on the outside. He's an inside big slot type of guy. Look, let's go ahead and get into the skill chart here for you guys. Kind of an awkward looking chart, to be fair, and look, I don't know exactly where I want to start off here. I think we'll touch on the things that are just not his game for me. His explosiveness at a 3.8 and his separation at a 3.3. Those grades are so similar because they're kind of a product of the same issue, right? He just doesn't have great long speed and great explosiveness, right? He wins through route running. He wins with great hands. He wins with good size. He wins with a lot of technical skill and a really good understanding of its short to intermediate routes. I was really never super impressed with his ability with the ball in his hands. I put Yak at a 4.4. The reason it's that high is because, he's a physical guy. He's going to barrel his way for extra yards. But it's very rarely, even at the college level, it's very rarely him running away from people. Obviously, if he has space underneath, he can utilize it. He's not completely helpless with the ball in his hands. I don't want to put it that way, but at a 4.4, that's just below average for me. I just don't think he has the athleticism that is going to be coveted by the NFL teams. I definitely think that's going to limit his upside. I certainly believe this is a guy that is a day 3 pick. Now, I think that's a little bold. I've seen him mocked on day 2 a lot. I've seen him mocked in the second round a handful of times. I just don't see it. I haven't gotten through every single wide receiver in this class. I haven't done a deep dive on every single wide receiver in this class, but I've pretty much gotten through the meat of this class, and I don't see any world where he's in the same class of some of the second round guys that I think are going to be drafted in the second round. I could be wrong, but I just don't see that. I think this is kind of a day 3 guy that fits a role, like I said. And look, the things that he's really good at, he's really good at. Okay, his hands are amazing. He has late, sudden hands, and he plucks the ball out of the air, strong, physical receiver, and catches the ball with that same kind of mindset, right? His route running is at a 6.3 because I love his ability to run short to intermediate routes. I think he creates a ton of space out of breaks. I think he runs smooth and decisive routes, great in and out of cuts. I think he can vary his speeds well enough. All of the things that you want to see from a high-level technical route runner, I think he has it. I do think he has a little bit of room to grow where he could become like a Keenan Allen level route runner, and there's a ton of value there. I think he's going to get passed over for guys that are maybe a little bit more explosive, a little bit more high-end potential, but you're not going to find a guy who has better hands in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't think. You're not going to find a guy who's a better blocker. He has a physicality and a grit to him that I think teams are going to love. I think certain teams are going to really gravitate towards that type of guy. I think he adds an element of toughness to your wide receiver room, and I think that's really, really important. Contact balance at a 6.4, that kind of speaks to it, right? He is not going to get bullied by anybody at the NFL level. He's not going to get pushed off his routes. He runs his routes with great precision, no matter who is on him, and he creates space through route running. regardless of the amount of contact that he's dealing with. So he runs, he's not impacted by that at all. I will say the only place he is impacted by like real press man coverage is in his release. Overall, I get why he's certainly valued maybe higher by other people I've seen. This is a guy that I hadn't watched. I kind of was late to the party with Jack Bech, and I had heard a lot of people talking about Jack Bech and podcasts and other things I was listening to. And I'm like, okay, I gotta watch him. I'm gonna love him. It's gonna be awesome. And I was a little bit disappointed with the overall athleticism. That was probably like the main thing that I looked at. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's good. He's good. He is good. He's not. I mean, he's not a difference maker at the NFL level. I think that's kind of where I would make my statement. That's kind of where I would have my dividing line, and why I would say, yeah, I don't know that I see day 2 and early day 3 makes a whole lot of sense to me. I just think there's just too many other guys that fit his general skill set. Maybe not high end hands, maybe not high end blocking, maybe not have the same level of like grit and physicality to his game. Certainly fit that, big slot skill set that just have more of the explosive element that I think more teams are going to covet than the physicality element that he brings to the table. It's real, it's important, and there's absolutely going to be a role for him. I'm rooting for him to end up in the right spot, and I think if he ends up in the right spot, he can be an absolute target hog. I think he could just, get everything underneath and be a guy who gets 5 to 7 receptions a game and be a fairly involved fantasy wide receiver. If he ends up in the right spot, if he's utilized in the right type of offense, I can absolutely see that. And just to piggyback on that thought, I do understand why certain people love this dude. I get why this is going to be a fan favorite for certain guys in the draft process. I think fans are going to be really excited when he gets drafted. I think he's going to fall a little bit. I think he's going to be considered a value wherever he does go, and I could be wrong about that. Maybe he goes in the second. I would be surprised, but I think it's possible. It's certainly possible. And if he does, he's going to a team that values that grit values that physicality, values the high-level technicality with which he runs routes. And if he ends up in a spot like Jacksonville, where you already have your clear-cut number 1 wide receiver, where the defenses have to worry about Brian Thomas Jr. and where he is on every single play, and then you have a Jack Bech who can just do all of these things underneath, that's a really good symmetry. I can see something like that fitting really well. Texans would be another example, another number 1 wide receiver with a guy who could kind of fit in that inside role. Things like that make the most sense to me. We'll see what actually happens with him. All right, guys, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you think about Jack Bech in the comments. It really means a lot to me that you made it this far in this video. And if you have, hey, like, subscribe, help grow this channel with me. I'm really trying to get something going here. And look, I just love talking football. I love talking NFL draft, and I really enjoy making stuff like that. So that's why I'm doing one video every single day leading up to the NFL draft. So loving it, having a good time. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.